Okay.
That was okay.
Okay, yeah, it works. Yeah, all good. Okay. Oh, that's pretty loud. Okay, sorry for a little bit of delay. I was making my slides last minute, so I didn't send it in advance. Anyway, hey everyone, my name is Alex and I represent Zerion today, and I'm going to talk about programmable bank accounts. But first, I just want to talk a tiny bit about DeFi that got lots of attention last year. And as most of you are probably aware of, it is inclusive, efficient, and composable, and there are like lots of great things. And there are like also lots of protocols and different financial instruments that are available these days in the world of DeFi. And however, there are like some points that we would like to achieve, and that's like something that you will expect from any app. And you want it to be easy to use, meaning that you don't have to be a developer to actually access that, and you don't have to have any technical knowledge. And you should have simple things like ability to recover your funds in case you lost your device or something like that. And ideally, you'd like to manage your funds across different devices. And also, you just want to see your portfolio, see your balances, and just be able to track your performance, like some simple thing that you would expect from any app that says that is gonna allow you to do some investments. And luckily, half of those things are already solved with a thing called smart contract-based wallets, and there are lots of different variations of that. I personally prefer Gnosis Safe implementation, but basically it solves the first 4 problems that I just mentioned, which basically means that you can have meter transactions, which means that our users don't have to know anything about the underlying technology. They don't have to have Ether in their account, and they can just like pay for transactions in any assets, so they can easily deposit their, let's say, stable coins into any protocol without even the knowledge that they are built on top of Ethereum. And the same goes for simple recovery. Since it's a multi-signature wallet, then you can just like spread your private keys across multiple devices, and it's not a big deal if you lose one of them. You can always recover that. And also potentially it adds some additional security because, for instance, we can do things like we can allow our users to interact with certain things just using one confirmation, while for more secure operations, like let's say you want to withdraw lots of money from the account, we could require for like basically 2-factor authorization. Let's say if I'm using my MetaMask on my laptop, I also need to sign the same transaction using my phone to actually make sure that's actually me and no one stole my phone before that. But those are the things that multi-sig wallets solve, but still there are like lots of outstanding issues outside of that. And surprisingly enough, there are like so many protocols, and everyone is talking about user experience, UI, how we can get broader adoption for DeFi. But surprisingly enough, so far, even such simple problems like even knowing how much money you have is not solved yet. Because even though all the DeFi protocols are supposedly composable, they built on top of each other, however, all of them follow different interfaces, there is no single standard, and in fact, if you've heard about some DeFi protocol, you need to go and find their website, and then you will usually connect your MetaMask, so then you will deposit some money into the balance of that protocol. But then the only way for you to actually know that you have those money is to remember that you used that protocol, which might not even be the case like in a year or so. And you basically like every interaction requires like going to different websites, and there is no way to see what your actual balance is or what's your total portfolio, etc., unless you go to 10 different places. And it's kind of something that does not seem right, and that's like one of the main issues that we are trying to solve as Zerion. And in addition to that, of course, we can talk about more complicated things like tracking your performance, tracking your like historical performance, etc. But the first thing that is not solved yet is even at least showing the accurate balances that you have all across DeFi. And that's why, and obviously we are not the only ones who struggle with the same issues. In fact, there are like some other products trying to solve the same problem, trying to create some cross-protocol integrations. Maybe some of you heard of DeFi Zap, and what they basically do is that kind of optimize specific use cases, but the problem with their approach is that they need to customly interact with every contract they want to integrate into their system, which means they need to have deep knowledge about every specific protocol they are working with. And another solution that was just announced the day before yesterday by Instadapp, they are trying to create so-called DeFi smart accounts, which basically means that they already have their smart contract-based wallets, and now they're kind of trying to add a middleware behind that so that they can easily let their users of their smart contract-based wallets interact with multiple protocols in a unified way. And what I'd like to talk today is what we call DeFi SDK, and that's a thing that we've been working on recently inside. And that's a solution that we'd like to propose to the DeFi community as some middleware that would allow to unify interactions with all the DeFi protocols. So the idea is pretty simple, and actually if someone is following our progress, you can see that we recently announced the support for yet another 8 protocols, and now we are able to display balances and prices of assets locked in most of them. And that is got much simpler for us to add thanks to the usage of the DeFi SDK that we developed. And what that means in a nutshell is that instead of interacting with every protocol directly, where every protocol has its own interface and we need to figure out how exactly that protocol works, we are writing smart contracts in between that we call adapters that basically know the language of the specific protocol, but from the outside perspective, they just implement standardized interface, which allows us to add new protocols easily and fetch data from them also easily. But what is cool, it's not only can be used not only for us, but for the whole community. So for example, if some mobile wallets want to integrate that, also instead of figuring out how every single DeFi protocol works, they can just use our adapters, and ideally, protocols should be interested in developing their own adapters to comply with the standard. So as probably all of you know, there's like ERC20 standard for tokens, and that's why they have such a broad adoption among the community, and all the wallets support them. You can see all your tokens in your MetaMask, and that is only possible because there is a single standard. MetaMask or any other app, they know how to read the balance, they know how to track the transfers, they basically know the language of every token. So even though they have no idea what that specific token means, they can still fetch the name, they can still fetch the balance, so that they can actually display you the actual state of your wallet, which is not the case, unfortunately, with DeFi protocols. And that's kind of the thing that feels is missing and that we want to fill. So, and another thing that even if you know the balance in every protocol, still lots of assets do not really make any sense as is. You can think of, let's say, Uniswap pool token. Basically, any liquidity provider to Uniswap, they supply certain amount of Ether, they supply, let's say, some DAI, and then they receive Uniswap DAI pool tokens in exchange. So now, if we have an adapter that allows us to fetch the balance, all we know is that we have one Uniswap pool token, but it doesn't really mean anything to us unless we actually know the underlying structure of that. And basically, there are like lots of tokens like that, and what we propose is that for every such derivative where there's like a certain underlying assets for every protocol asset, we can actually figure out what exactly that means in terms of some base assets that we know price for. So for example, we can say that one Uniswap pool token is actually worth of 0.98 ETH and also 10,000 CDAI, while CDAI itself has DAI as the underlying asset, and we also know the exchange rate, and this way we can actually figure out what exactly one Uniswap DAI pool token is worth in base assets, which is ETH and DAI in our example, and then knowing the prices for the base assets, we can actually figure out the price for the actual assets. That allows us, in addition to knowing the balance locked in different protocols, actually know the value of those assets, which is also pretty important, because if you just see the number, I have 10,000 CDAIs, still doesn't really make sense to me. But if I know how many DAI it is, then I can actually know how much money I have. And talking about protocol adapters, if you think about any protocol out there, most of them come down to you have some assets locked in a protocol, so you'd like to know the balance of those assets, but also in terms of actions, it's usually either depositing more or just withdrawing what you have. And any protocol out there, if it is Maker or Compound or Uniswap, can be simplified to that interface. And that is the interface of the protocol adapters that we are trying to implement. And we've done that already for 10 major protocols, including the ones that I already mentioned, and including some of the new ones, such as Curve Finance and some others, which basically allows us to show more accurate portfolio. And then in terms of interactions, another cool thing that is enabled with such approach is that we can create customizable chains of actions. So if we want to do some cross-protocol interactions, we can use the same protocol of withdrawing and depositing, and we can link as many adapters together as we need. And for example, for an action when we want to withdraw, so like let's say we have some DAI sitting in Compound and earning interest, so which basically means that we have CDAI, and let's say one day we decide that probably supplying liquidity to Uniswap pools is going to be more profitable. Using the same adapters and actions such as withdrawals and deposits, we can actually in a single transaction move our DAIs from Compound to Uniswap, which is, and also change part of DAI into Ether in between, since you need to deposit 2 assets into Uniswap pool, which is pretty cool. And like, I think the coolest thing about that the use case is programmable in a way that there is just like a set of adapters, and you know that every adapter has deposit and withdraw function, and you can combine it in any way without the need to deploy new smart contracts for new use cases. So the contracts are there. If the new protocol comes around, they can just deploy a new adapter for their protocol, and then it can easily become the part of the chain, and then you can just like mix and match it together and cover whatever UX experience you want to provide in a single button in your interface, which is not available at all right now. And so basically, just to sum up whatever I just said right now, DeFi SDK simplifies on-chain integrations, because now from a perspective of mobile wallet, if they want to get exposed to DeFi, instead of figuring out how to do 10,000 different calls to different contracts with different business logic, they can just like find a registry, and they can just in a unified way to interact with all the protocols, which will allow them to display assets of users locked in different protocols, and they don't even need to follow like all the protocols appearing, because once it's added to the registry, then it's automatically going to work with the same interface, which makes it much easier for wallets and other dApps to actually integrate DeFi balances. And another thing that I was just talking about, it's cross-protocol interaction. So in addition to just reading what you have there, it also allows you to easily move assets between protocols. And the last thing, it doesn't have anything to do with custody, which means it works with any wallet. It doesn't really matter if you have your assets in your externally owned account, or if it's an InstaDApp smart wallet, or it's like your Ledger, any other smart contract-based wallet. It's compatible with any of that. And we are already live, and actually the widget that I showed from our interface is using the 0.1 version of DeFi SDK, which is read-only for now. So basically half of the stuff I was talking about is already live and working, but we do not support actions such as deposit and withdrawals, because it is planned for the next version that we are going to release sometime soon. So feel free to drop us a message if you're a wallet or protocol and you're interested in taking part in DeFi SDK, and the read-only adapters are already available live on mainnet, and we work with, I believe, 10 major protocols out there. I guess that's about it. Thank you, and subscribe on our Twitter to be updated on our progress. Does anyone have any questions? I think one out there.
So when you mean that it will be available to developers in March, what do you mean? Like, is it going to be open source or what?
Okay, so yes, we are planning to do that open source, and we are planning to open source the standard itself, so that any protocol developers can just create an adapter for their own protocol. And we are going to have one custody part, which is registry, but that is literally a list of adapters available that we are going to use for our own interface to decide which adapters we actually display in our interface. So if a protocol, let's say, wants to be displayed in our interface, they will need to reach out to us so that we add them to the whitelist. But if we are talking about some other integrations, like mobile apps, let's say, they are free to just deploy their own registries and to support whatever protocol they decide to.
And when should we expect it to be available? When in March?
So as I said, there are like 2 steps. The first step, we just only allow you to read balances. We already developed it and it's already live on mainnet. So we just finalizing specifications and it should be open sourced within the next few weeks at most. While the second version of the protocol, the second version of the SDK that would actually allow you not only read the balances, but also interact with the protocols will be available, I guess, in a few months. Anything else? Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Dan. And I believe, was it the last talk for this event? Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
No problem.